All right, friends, we're back for your favorite podcast of the week. It is Location Weekly. It's episode number 564, and we're recording on April the 12th. Brianna, how are you?
I'm good. I'm doing well. I'm obviously in a different location. My husband and I are having a little adult mini vacation
Yeah.
in Asheville, North Carolina. So hanging out at a very cool bed and breakfast, Applewood Manor. Highly recommended if you ever come to Asheville, and just enjoying art and walking around and not having an agenda for a couple days. So I'm
Our
good.
kids.
Yes, our kids, that too. How are you?
Good. Yeah. The weather's like really improving a lot. Like almost every day right now, it's just getting warmer and nicer. And so that's really good. Baseball started. I got to go to the home opener on Friday, and watch my Jays come back from 7-0 down to win 10-8. So that was good. And yeah, otherwise, things are just rolling along, and lots in the hopper for the LBMA in the next couple of months, and we get conferences moving again and other things. But yeah, it's good. It's busy.
It is busy. I did watch the Braves home opener. Was not as successful as the Blue Jays, but I'm also hoping by the time we get back to New York, the weather is a little bit warmer too.
Yeah.
But I can do without all this pollen in the south. I'll tell you what, it's I do not miss that at all.
Right. Right.
Well, should we
Well,
jump into it?
let's do it. Yeah. Four stores as usual. I'll let you kick it off.
All right. So Tommy Hilfiger is showing off their spring collection in a unique way. So right now on the iconic Piccadilly lights in London, they're kind of changing up the consumer experience a little bit with an AR triggered via QR code coming from that big screen. So now users can scan that QR code, and not only will they get this 3D scene, which is combining video content, but they can also click through to get to the online store, and they can also get directions to the nearest store, which is just down, down the corner on Regent Street. And so this is really interesting. I like that they are linking digital out of home all the way either to e-commerce or into the actual physical retail store, and driving that in-store traffic, as well as capturing, I would assume, a good amount of data for both the media owner and the advertiser. So I think this is really interesting. The campaign's called Make Your Move. And then they have some further brand experiences they're touting within the Regent Street store, their flagship store. So the agency on this was PSI, which is the global out of home division of Dentsu International. Piccadilly Lights are owned, which are in London's West End, are owned by Landsec and operated by Ocean Outdoor. And then they're using a product called Video Mega Screen for the 3D video from a company called Darabase. So, a bunch of different companies coming together to make this possible. But, I think a lot of times when we see those big lights and those big screens, there's not necessarily a call to action. And I like that there's multiple calls to action here and multiple tracks that are leading to actual path to purchase beyond just an experience. So for me, this is a win. It's kind of combining the best of location, experience, but also driving towards that path to purchase. So it's a win for me. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, obviously, the location of what they're doing this, with the Piccadilly lights, it's iconic. It's been used for so many different experiences over the years. And so, obviously, just being there in the first place is high exposure, high traffic, and visibility. But I think what for me is the key to this story, as you pointed out, is really about how do we go directly from seeing something on the screen to driving traffic and footfall to the physical store, the online store, and they found a way to kind of do that and measure that. And often, with out of home, it's more about brand awareness and just sort of getting your imagery and your message across, and much harder to kind of look at conversion. But they've addressed that here with this, and I also like that it combines sort of a 3D sort of AR type experience here, which we're seeing every day now. With that sort of real conversion call to action piece. So
Mhm.
I like it. It's kind of bridging, sort of the physical and the digital and the retail all together in one go. So I think it's pretty cool. Yeah. All right. Jumping on to our second story now. We're sticking with the UK here. And Cadbury is just a few weeks ago did something pretty interesting. And so I'm not in this category myself, but apparently, a lot of people, when there's promotions on for vegan food or meals or what have you, lots of people, sort of apparently send a lot of mean tweets to companies and people who fall into that category. And so, Cadbury decided that they wanted to kind of turn this around a little bit and change people's mindsets. And they actually have a vegan chocolate now available under their brand. So they decided to set up a sort of temporary store called the Mean Tweet Shop in Soho, London, and basically takes people's mean tweets that are, going against vegan food and turning those tweets, the messages that are on those tweets, into wrappers for their plant-based chocolate bars. And so you could go into this store. It was open, like I said, just a few weeks ago, up until March 27th. And they, as they say, the best way to turn hate into love is by providing free chocolate. And so you could just go in and grab one of these chocolate bars, and the wrapper's got these tweets on it. Yeah, I think it's interesting. Anytime you can kind of create some sort of pop up, retail experience, but do it in a cheeky, fun way that drives a lot of traffic. It's not just about selling something. I think it's interesting, and these are all free chocolate bars that they were just handing out. And just to point out some of the tweets that they said, like, vegan chocolate is vile. Vegan chocolate sounds grim. Like, just things like that they were putting on these, on these wrappers. Yeah, so trying to just spin that around and say, hey, like, embracing that this is a growing segment in our population, and certainly for them as a chocolate maker and manufacturer, growing their base of vegan chocolate consumers at the same time, and having a little fun with it. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think it's hilarious that people have such strong opinions about others' lifestyle and dietary choices that nobody's making them choose. Like,
Right.
get a life. But I think that it's great that they're taking something that was intended for, you know, just spite and hate and using it for good and fun. It's like, hey, thanks for the free content. And so I think that it is fun. It's like a little bit edgy too. But it's definitely drawing attention, and I like that they thought of this. I mean, it's good. It's good. Not a lot to add, like nothing super, I don't know, advanced or, nothing crazy about it, but it's just creative, and I like the minds that came up with it for sure.
Yeah, I think it is too. And I think, like, I guess the only piece for me that I didn't quite see in the story was, once you go there and you try the chocolate and, hopefully you like it, is there some sort of way to then capture, social, media coming out of that they can kind of leverage, right? Further. So, maybe something on the wrapper that they could kind of post, scan and post or whatever. I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see myself. I'm not a vegan, but I would definitely try some vegan chocolate. I
Chocolate's
like
chocolate. It's good.
that. Yeah. Hey, and if I can say it's plant-based, I mean, all the better. It makes me
Yeah.
feel happier for eating it. All right, so let's go to something a little bit more, location-based. Here is a drone announcement, and Wing is announcing again that they are releasing drone delivery service of medicine and ice cream and some other fun things too. So they are debuting their drone-based delivery service from the parking lot of a Walgreens store in Little Elm, Texas. So if you are in that area, definitely check this out. And if you didn't know, Wing is an Alphabet subsidiary. So, they are this is the first customer operated drone fleet, really trying to be direct to consumer type of a play, not necessarily for just deliveries for business to business or something like that. But what they're allowing customers to do now is they can choose Walgreens items, they can order Bluebell ice cream, pet prescriptions from Easy Vet, and first aid kits from Texas Health Resources. So right now they're limiting this to, just tens of thousands of suburban homes in that area in Frisco and Little Elm. And the Wing employees are the ones who are coordinating these deliveries. So, the deliveries that are coming from places other than Walgreens, they'll have to kind of stage them, have a staging area and put them together. But we had talked about this on the show, it's been a while, but they had done a delivery service in Christiansburg, Virginia. They tested in Finland. Apparently they've tested the most in Australia. They've done most of their 200,000 commercial drone deliveries there. And the deliveries are made within 10 minutes of dispatch. And the drones have a range of 12 miles round trip. So, obviously it's a pretty limited area when you're thinking about like suburban America. But when you think about 12 miles in a New York City, that's a pretty big range. So there's a lot, I think of, there's a lot of like hope for how this progresses in the future and how that would work. They did say that not everyone was going to be able to order on day one. So they're obviously ramping this up and testing it out. And, I think this is really interesting. The more, straight to consumer we can get, the easier the delivery gets, taking out kind of aspects around like traffic and gas perhaps, or, all of these other things that can cause friction, and removing those friction points is always a great way to consider, like, how do we advance delivery for the future? So, these tests have been limited. They've been in like more suburban areas. They've been small in scale, but they're continuing to do this. And it will be something that, grows and is probably a norm in the future. How that looks in more condensed areas will be interesting to see. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of continue to keep this on our radar. I don't think this is going to be like, okay, this year, next year, this is mainstream. There's a lot that still has to be worked out, but not only from like a tech perspective, but from, delivery zones, like how do they deliver, how fast can they actually like recharge the drones and get all of those things going. So there's just a lot of like little loose ends that have to be figured out, but I love that they're continuing to test this. And if you are in that area, we would love to hear kind of your experience if you're able to be one of those deliveries. What do you think?
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. I think this has a lot of potential, whether it's Wing or any of these, sort of drone delivery services that are popping up all over the place. But, I think, you hit on a couple things there that, resonate with me, which, the high gas prices, and things like that, we were talking about last week. I think finding ways to, sort of get around that with, not having to be in traffic, not having to, sort of, worry about, all of that, and adding these surcharges that we have, to cover fuel costs or whatever on Uber Eats and things like that, I think become really interesting, and make something like a drone delivery service viable. The other thought that popped into my head as you were talking is, so my parents, they live in a high-rise seniors condo, unit. And maybe for that segment of the population, getting out to go get prescriptions and things like that becomes more challenging. But here you're talking about, a high-rise, condo unit, right? And how do you address that? And so the thing that was going through my head is like, well, you know what? At least in that particular building, every unit has a balcony that faces outwards, and so. What if like you could, sort of team up with somebody like What Three Words, have your balcony be an address, and then have the drone just deliver right to your balcony, right? Or something like that. I think that becomes really viable for me, because then you have, sort of a segment of the population that doesn't necessarily, get out as easily to go to the store to get what they need. And getting something delivered, to a building where there's like a lobby and security and, all of that to walk through, has its own challenges. But if you can go right to that person's balcony because it's addressable, that becomes really interesting. So maybe there's a partnership there that could be explored. Just
I
throwing that
think
out
that,
there.
yeah, I was thinking more about also like, is there a way that the top of the buildings can now have like a receiving area,
Yeah.
right? So like they receive the shipments and maybe there's somebody that mans that for the building, or, residents have access to that area and can go in and get it. Because obviously you're not going to leave something on a doorstep, for an apartment building in New York City, or, if your parents didn't have a balcony, like what would be the option? So I think there's just a lot to consider, but
Yeah.
for sure, like how good can these drones fly? Can they drive? Can they fly and kind of like put it into the balcony? I don't know. That would be great, right?
Yeah. Be cool. It'd be cool. I don't know. But anyways, lots to think about there, and I think definitely the timing is right for these kinds of services now to start to be trialed and actually work. So, all right, on to our final story. So we're going to jump over to Germany now, where the elevator manufacturing company Schindler, we've all seen their elevators and buildings we've been in over the years, but they've decided that they want to get into the digital out of home screen space. So if you've been in any sort of major downtown financial district here in Toronto or New York or anywhere, and you hop in the elevator, you've probably seen a screen, with some sort of advertising running on it, or the local weather or news, or ticker, from the stock exchange, or those kinds of things. And historically, these types of services have been operated by, actually a Toronto-based company called Elevator News Network, or Captivate is the other major player in the space. This is one of the rare instances where the actual elevator manufacturing company has decided to create their own screen media network. It's called the Schindler Media Network. And they are teaming up with a Berlin-based startup called Hygh, Hygh. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. And they're already in the business of selling advertising spots and inventory in retail shop windows. And so basically they're acting as the sales agent, promoting the inventory that's now available in the Schindler elevators. So I think it's pretty interesting. The network is starting in 12 German cities. More cities and screens are being added. And it kind of gives, the way they're pitching it is sort of, it's intended for both residential and office buildings, and kind of giving building owners that use Schindler elevators, or now access to the Schindler Media Network, as sort of a full-on end-to-end solution, where it's all installed and operated and monetized for them, with revenue sharing and all the things that go with that. So I think it's pretty interesting to see sort of the manufacturer jump into the out of home space in this context. And obviously, like, what the other thing about these types of screen networks is the content that appears on there tends to be truly hyper local. So it could be, if this is a residential building, like for example, let's say it's my parents, seniors condo building there, it can be promoting, advertising, but it could also be promoting, things that they need to know, from the building, itself, in terms of maintenance, schedules, or, owners meetings, or, whatever the case might be, right? So I think it's kind of neat that way. What are your thoughts?
Well, from a business perspective, what I love about this is like you sell an elevator, you sell it once, but you sell advertising over and over again. And I think that from a revenue standpoint, this is a great opportunity for them. Like they've got the real estate that's there, and obviously there's rev share implications that are involved here. But I think this is, a natural progression, is thinking like, what else can we do with our real estate, if you will. So I think that this is really it's smart, right? And I believe they also make like escalators and other things like that. So I'm sure they're starting to think about, is there ways to, provide some type of screenage there, on the sides or on the
Yeah.
stairs, or, what else can they work in? So I like that. And I do like that it is hyper local. It can be tied to, a shopping center. It could be tied to a residential building. It can be tied to what's going on within that shopping center, or, nearby, or upcoming concerts, or, anything that's kind of happening. So just like any other digital out of home space. But what I also think is interesting is the ability to know a little bit more concretely, like who you're advertising to, when it's in a specific location versus a billboard, which tends to have a lot of fluctuation in traffic and driving by. And you can get a lot of great data today, but I think that in a captive building, you're going to have a little bit better sense of who the audience is and whose eyes are on that.
Yeah, well said. So that's it. That's our show for this week. Four interesting stories, a bunch of stuff around out of home and local delivery wrapped in there. But yeah, always, as always, there's some interesting things happening around our world of location, and we appreciate your time, everybody. So thank you for listening and watching. Please reach out if you have story ideas or feedback for us. As Brianna pointed out, if you live in Little Elm or Frisco, Texas, or whatever, and you have access to this wing pilot project, try it out. Let us know. We'd love to hear about it. And of course, we'll be back next week with yet another show. So have a great week, everybody. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.